High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly. Tucker waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined once again by tag team partner Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Episode 98. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen listening. We've been gone for just about a week or so thank you for being patient with us. I think we needed a little breather. I don't know about you, Steve, but I felt like after all the trade deadline stuff, the live episode, I needed a little breather to step back and kind of regain my focus here. And at baseball season, we are officially in the dog days now.
Yeah, and luckily we did take a little bit of a hiatus for a week, because if we would have recorded on Monday, we would have had to either do an emergency pod, wait a week later to talk about all the stuff that happened with Roman Anthony and his extension. We would definitely miss that. And the news cycle continually moves. And Devin and I were speaking about this off air. We literally could do a 50-minute podcast every single day about baseball and not lose content. That's how fast the season moves. And I feel like day to day, the shifts have changed. We talked about the trade deadline, the winners and the losers, and we will get into having a week removed. The dust has settled a little bit, but I think the perception of who won and who lost is already changing overnight.
Yeah, and I think a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, the narrative may change again. That's how quickly baseball and the storylines can change, just like the regular news cycle. Something seems like a huge story one day, and then 2 days later, you barely remember it because something else big has happened. So, like you said, every day we've got some news here, and we're going to do the best we can breaking it down all for you tonight.
So before we move into our opening, I want to remind you guys, if you want to follow us on social media and support us at Tablesetters Pod on both IG and X, and also go to Dugout Mugs, use code TS10 to save 10% on your order. It does go a long way. And lastly, please leave a 5-star review for us. Help other people find us in the algorithm. It goes a very long way as we continue to discuss baseball. But with that being said, Devin, let's hop right into our opening segment. All right, Devin. So there's two topics we're very, very passionate about for opening say, and they easily could have been one of our meat of the order stories, but I'll let you take the lead here with stuff going on in Pittsburgh and the historic Paul Skeens.
Yeah, all right. So a couple nights ago, a little headline caught my eye, and I'm sure everybody else that saw it as well, where somewhere in Pittsburgh, it was reported by a few people that Paul Skeens and the Pirates, or more so the Pirates, are trying to engage Paul Skeens in contract extension talks. I'll be honest, this is one of those reports that came out and then is pretty quiet. You expected some kind of follow-up. I haven't seen a lot, so I'll keep track of it in the coming days. But whether it's true or not, or somewhere in the middle, it got me to thinking, is it possible for the Pittsburgh Pirates to extend this guy? I mean, just a day after that report came out, the Roman Anthony thing gets done, which we'll talk about later on tonight. And it made me think, all right, Roman Anthony takes the 8 for $130 million, obviously buying out years of arbitration. We've seen this before. For Skeens, who has even more work under his belt, obviously he's a pitcher, so it's not the same. But what would it take? And here's the thing. Let's read off some stuff for you guys while you listen, just to put it in perspective. Paul Skeens has truly gotten off to one of the best starts in his career for a starting pitcher we've ever seen. Maybe the best start, you could argue. He leads the league now after 6, I believe, shutout innings tonight against the Reds, with now a 1.94 ERA. So that came down back below 2. I believe he's the only qualified pitcher under a 2 ERA. I know Nathan Eovaldi is under there and doing great things. He's not quite on the qualification right now, but nonetheless, 1.94 on the season. Career ERA coming into tonight was 1.99. So that's dropped too. I don't have the updated number, but under 2 for the career. And here's the thing. If we want to look at other pitching contracts, the first one I wanted to look at, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Okay, as far as young guy coming into the league, 10 years, $325 million right off the bat. Now, special circumstances, sure, but I think his contract looms large. Okay, Yamamoto never threw a major league pitch and got that money. Okay. Again, unique position. Yes. Can't draft him. So it's different. But Paul Skeens has over a year under his belt of just unbelievable success. So you have to keep that in mind. Zach Wheeler, as far as AAV, the highest number there, 42 million. So we can keep that in perspective as well. To me, I know you're buying out years of arbitration, so the numbers aren't as big as you might think. But if I'm Paul Skeens, why am I even considering engaging the Pirates in this discussion unless they literally start with a number of years at 10 and have a number around $300 million like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who never threw an MLB pitch when he got that kind of money? Your reaction, Steve, when you saw this report, was it laughter? Was it astonishment? Was it hope that it actually can be true?
I just don't think it's possible for it to be done, as you mentioned, for all those reasons, because, and again, we're not in his head, but watching it from the outside looking in, by conventional standards, Paul Skeens, the spotlight wants to shine on him. Magazine covers, the monthly awards we've seen from Livy Dunn being around his side. This is a guy meant for a big market. And Pittsburgh, I give them credit for going out there and making an offer, but it is what they have to do. I just don't think there's any shot in any way that they could ever offer him something that's realistic, because a guy like Paul Skeens is destined to hit the open market. He could be setting records. Obviously, on the field, we're seeing the lowest ERA by any starter in their first 46 starts going back to the start of the live ball era in 1920. That's historic stuff. Names behind him: Vida Blue, Dwight Gooden, Oral Hershiser, Jose Fernandez. This is a generational talent. And unless he's traded, there's no way that the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to get anything back from this guy. Is going to walk and he's going to get big money. And you got to give them credit, like you said, by putting them out there and giving an offer. It's what they have to do just to appease the fan base. That's, let's be honest, we've been discussing Bob Nutting and what's going on with Pittsburgh, and they have to make their best attempt. But everybody with any sort of logic in their brain know that Paul Skeens is not going to be in a Pirates uniform if they let him hit free agency.
But that's what I want to know. Like, was an actual offer made? Like, or is this a story that's being leaked out there to try to buy ownership some time and some goodwill? Are they trying to fool fans into thinking they're actually trying to do the right thing? Because other reports just came out and said that it is expected that for the Pirates this offseason to spend the same amount of money that they have the last few off seasons. They're not going to increase payroll. That literally came out like a day after the Paul Skeens report. So, like, how much of this is actually true is what I want to know. And to be honest, the more you read, the more you think, I don't think it is. I mean, it's the tweet says they're trying to get something done in contract extension talks. The largest contract the Pirates have ever given out is 8 years, $106.5 million to current Pirate Brian Reynolds. That's the biggest contract they've ever given out. It's going to take a lot more than that to make Paul Skeens even listen. At least it should. I think he is a guy, even though he's pretty reserved. He doesn't come off as full of himself at all, but he's a guy who knows what he's worth. And I think he's very much a guy who knows what he wants out of his career and his life. So I just don't buy it. I thought it was interesting. We've had the talk before over the last year of, like, do we think there's any world where the Pirates can keep him in Pittsburgh longer than, the current contract? And I think anytime you have the conversation, as optimistic as you can possibly be, I don't think the conversation ever ends in, you know what, I really think they can do it.
Yeah, and I also look at this situation, and you want to compare it to Roman Anthony, but it is in apples and apples because of the fact that Paul Skeens' path to the major leagues was so quick. Number 1 overall pick in 2023, immediately won National League Rookie of the Year in 2024, and now he started the All-Star game in each of his first 2 seasons. The list goes on. The resume's there. Cover athlete for them will be The Show, or the reigning NL pitcher of the month for July. One of the more high-profile athletes. There's no shot. The only way this could have got done is similar to what you're saying about Yamamoto, is he somehow got in a room, never saw him throw a major league pitch, and throw a lot of money at him and take the risk. Like a Roman Anthony, where if Roman Anthony lives up to who he is, the Red Sox are getting a bargain. We will discuss some of the contracts comparable to that. We've seen it go down. This has been in trend for baseball for the last few years, where you're seeing them lock up their players without them being proven. There's a lot of really success stories, but we'll get into some of the contracts didn't work out well. Everyone wants to go to Wander Franco, but there's other ones out there that it didn't work out when you try to lock up your young stars. Point being is, the horse is already out of the corral. He is already running past where he's going.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. You want Pittsburgh to be able to be competitive, be a big market team, and be in comparison to the LAs and the New Yorks and the San Franciscos and the San Diegos, and be in the same realm of possibility, but it's just not at this point. And when you saw the return for Mason Miller, what we saw at the deadline just got a bounty and headlined by Lou DeVries, and seeing what they're going to be building around that in Sacramento and eventually Vegas. Can you imagine what the package would look like for a Paul Skeens? And if you're the Pirates, I know that there'd be pitchforks and flames and all that at your doorstep at PNC Park. But if you can restock this farm system from some other, I don't think the Yankees match up. There's not a farm system that really matches up what the price would be, but you have to know comparatively, it was a king's bounty to get Mason Miller. Who knows? You're going to backload the truck into the driveway as far as prospects and future. I don't even know what it has to look like for Paul Skeens the offer, because Mason Miller set the bar high, and Paul Skeens is a generational talent that we've never seen the likes of. It's not being hyperbolic at any point. He's historic what he's doing.
Yeah, one of the guys he goes out there and you just feel like as soon as he throws the first pitch, he's locked in, and you know exactly what you're going to get for the guy. Guy gives up a run or two and you're like astonished, like, whoa, what's wrong with Paul? So I mean, Pirates always seem to be interesting, a lot of times for the wrong reasons. I mean, we'll be watching, see if Bob Nutting and Charrington over there change the narrative at all. And obviously this would be a huge way to get everyone's attention and make it feel like the Pirates are going in a different direction. But I, for one, will not be holding my breath.
So we're shifting over to the Bronx, New York, and the Yankees have the off day today. They await the Houston Astros at the Boogie Down Bronx. But obviously the story here in New York, and we waited a little bit. They got a win yesterday, which sort of stifled some of the flames of the Bronx that is currently burning right now. And their stumble, Devin, we've discussed it at length. It's turned into, in my opinion, almost a full-born collapse at this point. Playoff-bound roster. They're still in a spot that's in shouting distance of that wild card spot, but they're wandering aimlessly through these dog days of August. Yankees right now, 26-33 since May 28th, sinking to the lengths of watching teams at the bottom of the barrel as far as the leagues go. They lost a series in Texas, and they were out-hit, out-managed, out-fought by the Rangers. This team is clawing to stay afloat. We saw what the Rangers are doing here. Like I said, they snuck it out. Bednar showed a lot of grit in the finale in that series. A big conversation has to do with everything that went down against Miami. They're absolutely embarrassed. And we haven't been on here since we've gotten all these guys in a Yankee uniform, but Camilo Doval, David Bednar, Jake Bird, who's no longer with the team anymore. Every single thing that could have got wrong. Jose Caballero made an error in that game against Miami. Where to even start? Like, it's almost better that we're not doing a daily podcast about the Yankees, because I would go out here and just have an aneurysm right on the air. Because watching the Yankees every single night, and I do that. I watch the Yankees, big fan here, love baseball. I've been discussing it. The fundamentals are lacking. And really what I'm seeing now, and it starts with the Jazz situation where he tried to tag up at first and go to second, then Aaron Boone covered for him, and Jazz said he wouldn't do anything different. It's just all ugly. And there's no accountability on this team. Aaron Boone, to his credit, is still facing the media. He's still doing his John Boy appearances. His answers for me have been hollow since the beginning. And he's questioned about those bizarre pinch hitting situations, the bullpen stuff, the defensive miscues. The response to me is always vague. And we even saw Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez in the pregame of that rain-shortened Speedway Classic. They were sitting in the panel, and they were asked about the Yankees, and they were openly criticizing the team. They have no urgency. I think that is a big thing for Jeter to go out there and be critical of this team. The Miami thing was a microcosm of who they were. They were surrounded by Yankee fans. It was the highest attendance we've seen for the Miami Marlins in how many years. Great series for them, the gates and all that. But they absolutely dominated them. And we'll talk about them. They're a big story if we believe in the fish and what they're doing over there. But for the Yankees, they're still in the race. But there's a difference between being in the race right now and being a threat. And the Yankees really feel like neither. I don't feel like this is a slump anymore. It's a crisis of identity. I think belief is fading among the Yankees fans. And I believe it's fading in the dugout. You see their faces. Devin Williams postgame after blowing that save. It is once a promising season. This could turn around. Like I said, they won in Texas and things have been stifled. You listen to New York radio today, and you said it before, the news cycle, 24 hours, moves so fast. But I think time is running out for this Yankee team to make it better. And I think it starts and ends with holding Aaron Boone accountable and firing him because of things that went down, whether it be Austin Wells, Jazz Chisholm, these defensive things that are going on. These are not just one-off things. The Yankees right now it's an identity crisis, and it's a problem.
Yeah, I think when I watch them as a non-Yankee fan, I don't see a team that's just in a slump. I see a team that is waiting for the big bad thing to happen. Like, how are we going to lose tonight? Like, okay, we got a lead. We're up by one, or we're down by one. We're chasing. We got guys on base about to tie the game. What are we going to do wrong? Like that's what they look like. And even that game that they just won against the Rangers last night, obviously off today, it just felt like it was like pulling teeth to get across that finish line. Like obviously good for them. They got it done. And maybe that starts a winning streak here. Maybe it kind of, especially with the day off the next day, although maybe after a win, you want to keep playing. I don't know. But maybe it lets them relax a little bit. It's interesting when I look at the stats. I go back to July 1st, so we don't want to go back too far. Let's just look at July and now obviously a little bit into August here. Since July 1st, a 245 team batting average, it's middle of the pack. They're like 15th, right there in the middle. So I mean, not jarring. On base percentage 312, which is 17th. So that shows you they're really not getting on base through the walk very much. They're kind of just close to their batting average there. 448 slugging percentage, which is 5th. So they still mash the ball. But they're also proving that they can't just be a great winning team by just hitting a bunch of home runs. 54 home runs since July 1st, which is tied for first in Major League Baseball. 25 stolen bases, which is 6th in Major League Baseball. So they're running a little bit. They have that to their credit. With runners in scoring position, they're hitting 247, which is 16th. Again, middle of the pack. So they very much seem like a middling team. As far as pitching goes, this seems to be maybe the bigger problem. 5.61 team ERA, 28th in the league, 4.22 walks per 9, which is dead last. So they're not helping themselves putting these guys on base. Defensively, 21 defensive runs saved, which is 13th in the league, better than you would think. If you look at the other analytic that people like to use for defense, outs above average, -8, which is 21st, which makes them look a little worse. Just with the eye tests, they look worse than that, to be honest. And then base running runs above average 1.1, which is 10th in the league. So maybe a little better on the base paths since July 1st than we would think watching them. My thing, I mean, I want to go back to what you kind of put in there at the end. You have always been the person that's kind of like been able to calm down and say, all right, let's not just fire the guy, because who is replacing him like that we think is going to do a better job. So now for about a week or so, I've heard you several times, whether it's through text or just now, saying fire him, fire Aaron Boone. So what has gotten you to that point as one of the calmer Yankee fans I know to put yourself across that line who you're now saying, no, I want to fire him now?
I really look at it as I mentioned before, the word was accountability, and seeing the same mistakes being made night after night and really no fire in this team. And seeing, I mean, I even watched the post games, having the conversations, and you're making decisions and you're doomed to making the same decision over and over again. Watch them go to Devin Williams once again. We all knew it was going to happen. If you're watching as a fan, you mentioned the eye test. We all knew Devin Williams has no aura anymore, whether it was the Alonso home run in Milwaukee that broke him. It feels like he's just not the same pitcher anymore. So just go by the gut. I understand that the analytics probably say Devin Williams, like, yeah, he's due to have a game that he's not going to blow. But to watch him out there, he blew the save to Jock Peterson. The dude's hitting 131 this year. This guy is a shell of himself. And then we get the walk-off with Josh Young. And like the whole thing is just an absolute disaster. As far as being calm, my thing is I wanted to wait for someone to be stepping up. Like, who is the heir apparent to Aaron Boone? Because that's always been the Yankees' MO. They want to know who's next. And maybe no one knew it was going to be Boone after they fired Girardi. Clearly they had Boone in mind. You know, Torrey to Girardi, passing the baton to Boone. That's always been that way. But if you go back in the past, I mean, 21 of 23 seasons, George Steinbrenner was firing managers. Like, the Yankees are not unused to doing this kind of stuff, but we've known stability at the top. My problem is, like I said before, words accountability, there's none of it. And these players feel like they're not being, if they're making a mistake on the field, that Austin Wells thing was just inexcusable, losing track of the outs. And I love Austin Wells. I think he's a good motivator on this team. To me, an offensive spark plug. I like what he does on Instagram, but when you lose track at second base, you should be taken out of the game. Same thing with Jazz. That whole thing, you should be taken out of the game. And you look at everything that happened. Jazz gets pulled in the tunnel, and then the first base coach gets talked to in front of everybody, made an example of. And kudos to John Boy at having them have the conversation. Boone has no answers for this. Yeah. And you look at the bench coach, Brett Ausmus maybe would take over. You saw that happen with Rob Thompson. Rob Thompson's still the manager in Philly after Girardi was fired. So maybe it is Brett Ausmus becoming the heir apparent of this interim manager and try to right the ship. But I don't know who the heir apparent is, but I know Aaron Boone's not the guy. I've seen enough of this to know he's not taking them across the finish line. He has no feel for the game right now. And managing the bullpen, just a symptom of a bigger issue for this whole team. And there's a lot of issues that have to be managed with Judge's arm injury, with the elbow. He can't play the outfield. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made on a nightly basis, and he's pushing every wrong button, and it feels like it's happening year after year.
Yeah, that's the next thing. I feel like you have 4 DHs on that team now with the Judge stuff, where you're gonna have to figure that out. Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear you. The Austin Wells, I'm glad you brought him up because I actually wrote in my notes. I mean, everyone's on Anthony Volpe, and for good reason to a degree, but like Austin Wells his play has really suffered. It's not just that bonehead move at second base that he made last week, but if you look at his stats, again, let's go back to July 1st. We could go back further, and it might even look worse. But 85 WRC plus for the season. So it's way below 100 now. Batting 189 since July 1st. The only worst 2 qualified catchers as far as batting average since July 1st. Kind of surprising names, actually. Carlos Narvaez of the Red Sox, who's had a great season, and Cal Raleigh, who is still hitting some bombs, but he has not been hitting for any kind of average in a long time. But Wells, I mean, he, to me, is another player who just has not turned out to be what we thought he was going to be. Started the season pretty well. I think Yankee fans were excited, like we have our franchise catcher. And I think now, if you poll Yankee fans and actually show them the statistics, I think a lot of them would doubt whether he's the answer long term there. And they've given a lot of catchers away too. They're already raving about the catcher they just gave away to the Pirates. Obviously, Agustin Ramirez down to Miami, who's looked great, Rookie of the Year candidate in the National League. So they're getting praise for being able to develop catchers, because catchers are something that other teams want to be able to trade for. But did you keep the right one? Did you send the wrong one away? That's going to be a question. The other thing is, I read you the pitching numbers. Like, yes, it's the bonehead mistakes that are hurting them. Pitching's also not been good. When you're since July 1st at a 5.61 team ERA, and you did not make a trade for a starting pitcher, when you see Max Fried starting to look not quite as dominant, when you see Carlos Rodon also kind of starting to struggle or be a little more inconsistent than he was in the first half of the season, and you didn't go get a Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen was not taking anybody. I understand that the prices for starting pitching obviously were expensive. We're going to talk about this when we talk about the Cubs later. Also, it's going to be the same narrative. But the Yankees had some prospects that I think they could have moved to get one of these starting pitchers to help this rotation kind of man the ship for the rest of the year. And once again, Cashman did not. He's prospect hugged for a long time. I know he made several trades and he did move some decent prospects, but it still feels like he didn't make the big move that maybe this team needed for morale and for performance.
And I mean, it's possible that this quote unquote super bullpen that he created will turn out to be their strength come October if they can get there. We know how quickly it can shift in a different direction. You know, maybe Camilo Doval winds up being the guy. David Bednar showed spurts yesterday, as we mentioned before, getting out of a tough spot. Maybe Devin Williams figures it out, but he, to me, looks like he's closer to being DFA'd rather than be the closer. Like, I just don't see this guy lasting in New York. And we've seen guys before. Sonny Gray was an example of it. He's still a good pitcher. He just didn't last in New York. And the Devin Williams stuff, I feel like for whatever reason, it just doesn't fit. And that's okay. But we have to make a decision, like maybe don't bring him in high leverage situations anymore. And that sucks because he's the guy that you want him to be. But to put a final wrap on this, I look at this team you mentioned before, waiting for the mistake to happen and kind of having bated breath, and everyone's kind of holding their bat a little bit tighter and gripping their glove. This is a team that's playing as a group, waiting for something or someone to fix itself. And they're watching time run out. You're watching this team in real time go down quietly. And even when they win games, it's done in such a ho-hum way. And I'm not sure what they need. I don't know if they need a brawl a la Tino Martinez and the Orioles all the way back in the 90s, or something to get this team reinvigorated. It feels like there's no belief in the system that's there. And that starts at the top. So someone has to be held accountable. I keep using that word. But Aaron Boone right now, he is on the hottest of hot seats. And I think him and Cashman are a package deal, and maybe they're waiting for both of them to see how the season shakes out. But it would not shock me to see Boone and Cashman gone come November of this year if things don't go the way. If things continue to slide in the direction we are, and there is a full-blown mudslide, there's no keeping on the tracks. Baseball shifts, but if they somehow walk through the mud and find their way, because remember 2000, I know you know it well, that team backed into the playoffs and somehow won a World Series. But this is not that group. Yeah. That was a hardened group of winners. So, you know, I think Boone has a lot of questions he needs answered before we start letting him out of the woods here.
Yeah, I'll just say this one more thing here. The Greg Bird thing is a little bit damning for the front office as well.
You mean Jake Bird?
Jake Bird, I'm sorry. Jake Bird, yes. So Jake Bird being sent down to AAA already. and he was getting banged around a little bit before he got to the Yankees, seeming like he hit a wall. Apparently, there's been reports that other teams kind of stayed away from him because he's been kind of beaten into the ground by the Rockies the first half of the season, used a lot, high innings, and the Yankees went ahead with it. Again, Yankees and the Cubs, their trade deadlines have a lot of similarities in things they did and didn't do, risks they did take, maybe risks they shouldn't have taken. And I will see. I mean, I think a couple months ago, a lot of people were predicting Yankees Cubs World Series. Could totally see that. And these two teams now are kind of, in a way, they've dug themselves a hole, and they're going to have to dig out of it. Other teams have kind of passed them by, and we'll see if they can get back to where they were.
So let's talk about the trade deadline. You mentioned the Cubs and what they did and didn't do, but let's put a finishing touch on what we saw last week. All right, so as the dust has settled on one of the more impactful MLB trade deadlines in recent histories, we either talked about franchises that went all in, they hit the reset button entirely. We got some obvious teardowns, aggressive bullpen stocking, as we mentioned with the Yankees. But for me, looking at the big, letting the dust settle as we used it before, looking at this from a winner's perspective, who's standing in the winner's circle, and letting this marinate for a while, Devin, I think the Athletics emerged looking amazing from this. We discussed it during the trade deadline. They were able to get what they got for a Mason Miller. I think no team flipped the trade deadline has had quite like the A's. I mean, obviously they got rid of Mason Miller and JP Sears, who was excess as well. We talked about Jake Bird,
Yeah.
but JP Sears found himself in minor league baseball once again. But we have Leo DeVries to look forward to. And now you look at this young core. Nick Kurtz obviously leading the charge. Jacob Wilson, Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler, Shea Langoliers has been on fire. Tyler Soderstrom, and now you add Leo DeVries to this as well. Likely the centerpiece of this whole goddamn team when they go to Vegas. I love what they did here. But San Diego in the other direction, I also love what they did as well. They looked at this and said, who needs prospects? AJ Preller went full send once again.
Yeah, I agree with you with the A's, man. I just getting DeVries, man. What a get. And that young core, it could be so exciting if they just don't step on themselves as far as the management there. And they're going to have to figure some pitching out. I mean, Gage Jump is a guy to be excited about in the minors as far as pitching goes. That's a name to look out for in the future. But they're going to have to put a rotation together and a bullpen. You could have amazing position players all over the diamond, but if you're giving up 10, 15 runs or you can't hold a lead every night, it's not going to matter. So hopefully they can do that as their next step as they head closer and closer to Vegas. But I also said Padres are the team that I feel like are seeing immediate impacts. I know not everything has worked out. You just mentioned Sears being sent down. Mason Miller had one blown save there, but he's also been a big piece of some wins. And Razor Ramon, as our friends at DSG are calling him, Ramon Laureano, looks fantastic. Oh, you got the Razor shirt on. Perfect. He has looked fantastic. He's looked really good all year, but now he's kind of in a spotlight in San Diego. And I mean, they're 2 games within LA, and that series, which I feel like we were just talking about last time they met when they were getting into all these little things. And I was mad that it was so long until the next series. I felt like they should be playing more often. Well, it's around the bend here now. We're getting towards it, and maybe it's going to be San Diego within 2 games heading into that series. We'll see. We're not there yet, but that's fun. So I think they're having the biggest impact so far as how quickly they're impacting the team. O'Hearn, obviously, giant home run last night as well. For the Mets, who made, this is another team that was declared a winner at the trade deadline along with the Padres. The new bullpen pieces, we've seen a little bit of them and they've looked pretty good, but they haven't had all that much of a chance to help the team get wins because the team as a whole is not performing well. So it's a little tough to judge the actual impact of those guys so far. I mean, Cedric Mullins has done pretty much nothing so far, but it's short term so far. Yankees, we've talked about them, but their additions have kind of struggled out of the gate. Obviously, the big save for Bednar, maybe that gives them a little confidence and gets them rolling. But overall, I'm waiting and seeing some more things going on. And I know we want to talk about the Cubs as well, because that one I have a big time opinion on. I already did before the deadline passed, but my opinion on them has only gotten stronger.
Yeah, I think they join the Red Sox as the two of the more frustrated fan bases of watching things that they looked at this. And Joe Ryan was a tease. We covered it on the show, but Joe Ryan, I think, happened before we went on I think MLB on Fox released the graphic of Joe Ryan in the
terrible.
Red Sox uniform before it happened.
Can't do
But
that.
clearly both Chicago and Boston needed a frontline starter, and they didn't get one either. Michael Soroka was acquired by the Cubs. He promptly hit the IL after only 2 innings pitched. Uh, the questions that the Red Sox and the Cubs have are probably equal. Garrett Crochet is going to have to hold up as the workhorse. He's 40 innings past his previous career high. And for the Cubs, the remaining starters have to stay healthy and effective down the stretch. And we look at whether it's Matthew Boyd, who looks masterful, Colin Rea, or maybe it's Javier Assad coming back from injury. Are these guys that strike fear in you for a National League playoff series? And my answer is no. And Soroka, even if he was healthy, doesn't do the same thing. So if you're a Cubs fan and a Red Sox fan, you have to be equally frustrated. I think the Cubs fans have more of an argument to be more upset about what went down, especially you have Kyle Tucker on a rental to figure this out, trade a lot of great pieces to get him in town. This is a one shot to win this right now. And maybe it's time of Jed Hoyer being extended. Maybe there's not as much urgency as you mentioned before. Maybe the timing of that extension wasn't as great as it should have been. The Cubs should have done more. There was more out there for them to do. There was more pieces. You could have overpaid for a Zach Allen. You at least feel good going into a playoff series knowing you have a proven ace out there. That's a problem. But I mean, talk about the Cubs and how you feel about them.
I didn't like the Soroka ad when it happened. I mean, listen, if that wasn't the only move, that and Kittredge, I know Willie Castro as well. Like if you got another big name, I'm not trying to get all over Soroka here, but the fact that he was probably your biggest addition is a huge problem when you're the team that for most of the season was leading the NL Central. Now you've watched the hottest team in Major League Baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers, pass you. That happened before the deadline. You've already watched the team pass you. You have Kyle Tucker on a possible rental. We just saw Juan Soto spurn the Yankees last year in a very similar situation. So if you're sitting there thinking you're the front runner for Kyle Tucker, don't fool yourself, man. You're being a little idiotic. I thought this was an egregiously bad deadline, and it only looks worse now as Soroka leaves. And it comes out that a lot of teams stayed away from Soroka because if you look, his velocity was clearly diminishing as the deadline was getting closer. It was obvious to everyone, which is a sign of potential injury. And what happens, like you said, 2 innings into his first start as a Cub, he gets hurt. He's on the IL. It's a terrible look for the Chicago Cubs that should have put themselves in a place where people today are calling them the World Series frontrunners. Yes, past the Dodgers. They should have made moves that big. And I know starting pitching, relief pitching was insanely expensive. This was the year to do it, man. You had the prospects to do it. And if you're not going to use them at the major league level right now, send them elsewhere and then rebuild the farm. You can do both of those things at once. I just thought it was an awful look seeing Soroka go down and then hearing that other teams were uninterested because of the velocity drop that everyone apparently was seeing. It's a really, really tough look for Jed Hoyer and the Chicago Cubs. They should have done something bigger. And I think they may look back at this season and it's going to be hard for them to forgive themselves that they didn't pull the trigger on some other moves.
Yeah, Preller and Jed Hoyer should have been one and the same. They should have been in lockstep what they did. Preller, as we mentioned, sent 11 rookie-eligible players outside the organization. They reshaped everything because they recognize Machado's aging, Tatis battling injuries, several key pieces are going to set to hit free agency. He's pushing his chips to chase the franchise's first ever World Series. As far as Jed Hoyer goes, I understand the Cubs won in 2016, broke the curse, but this is a win now team. Kyle Tucker's here, guaranteed for the rest of this season, but nothing further is guaranteed. Maybe he likes his time in Chicago. He'll re-sign with the team, but you have to pay top dollar and figure this out. Like we said before, you gave up a lot of pieces to bring Tucker in-house. It's about winning now. It's been that way since you brought him in. So in my opinion, Jed Hoyer and AJ Preller were to me, they should have the same roadmap, but Preller went the one direction. And in a lot of ways, the Cubs have the prospects to do exactly what the Padres did. And they mortgaged the future, and kudos to them. If San Diego winds up getting past LA and winning their first ever World Series, no one's going to care if Leo becomes the face of the league because they got their World Series. We watch it happen. I mean, even what happened with the Cubs when they won 2016, you think anyone cares? They traded Gleyber Torres for Aroldis Chapman. They don't, because they got their World Series. So you mentioned the prices for the bullpens, and then some of the stats I saw over here, and you look at the last 10 years of postseason baseball, 50% of playoff innings are relief pitchers, and the bullpen is king. And we saw the price, and maybe some of the teams are looking at this, the Phillies, the Yankees, the Mets, as you mentioned, maybe they looked at this and saying, instead of going out there and getting one good starter to get us one win, maybe the bullpen can help be our ship to carry us through these murky waters. But as we saw, it can shift overnight. Either you don't have the opportunity to use them like the Mets and not being able to pitch with a lead, or the Yankees, you watch them collapse because it was rocky from the start. So the only bullpen that we've seen really kind of show itself, as we mentioned, the Padres have a league leading ERA for their already established amazing bullpen. Plus you added Mason Miller to the top, but the Phillies adding Duran, who's the hardest throwing closer in baseball outside of Mason Miller. I love what they did as well. So we'll see how it goes, but I think the approach is going to be key because it's a copycat league. So watching the bullpens be constructed, they're moving pieces as an arms race, pun intended, to make this make sense. And the only way to know if it's going to be successful, this will be continue to be used in the future, is if it is successful for any of these teams come October.
Yeah, I agree, and you're right. The Phillies, we should mention, they're as of now they're coming out smelling like roses too. And I'll just wrap up the Cubs thought with this. It just feels like I think the excuse for the Cubs is we already made the big move before the season, right? Like, don't forget we made this big move to go get Kyle Tucker, and I get that, but it's almost as if they couldn't it's them, Jed Hoyer, and the fan base standing next to each other on the top of the boat, and they're like, we're gonna jump into the water, right? 1, 2, 3. The fans jumped. And Hoyer, like right before he was about to jump, stopped, skidded to a stop. He's like, I don't think I want to do it. Right? He got a little scared. That's what it feels like. The fans jumped in 2 feet all in off the top of the boat, and Hoyer got cold feet at the last second. And now they're left down there like, well, what the hell? And that's what it feels like. It just feels like they stopped short. And it's got to feel terrible to see the Milwaukee Brewers just lighting the world on fire right now.
So the one thing I'll say before we move to those 70-win Brewers is at some point, I would love to get someone on that covers the Minnesota Twins, because I thought what they did was absolutely worth a full episode of coverage. It's not really worth talking about right now with October looming and postseason, and they're not a contender this year, but they tore it down. And this is paired with the ownership trying to sell the team, their cost cutting, and seeing what they did with Correa and Duran and Paddock. And this is a sale-driven fire sale, and I'm wondering what the optics are like in Minneapolis for the Twins fan base that is passionate, man. This is a team that is centered, obviously, Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton. These are guys that they love, and they love this team. But what they did to me was egregious in a lot of ways. But if it has a direction, different story. But we'll wait to have a conversation another day about that. But as far as the Milwaukee Brewers, the best team in baseball does wear Milwaukee on its chest. The first of 70 wins. They don't have the biggest payroll, as Devin mentioned before. They didn't make the flashiest trade, and they really don't ever dominate the headlines. But as of today, the Milwaukee Brewers have something no other team in Major League Baseball have: 70 wins in the standings, the first team to reach the mark in 2025. And it was the fastest they've ever done so in franchise history. So their win over the Braves, 5-4 at Truist Park, was a series sweep for them. It capped a perfect 6-0 road trip, and it cemented their spot at the top of the standings. They hit that mark in just 114 games, which the previous club record set by the 2021 team, 119 games, and they're outpacing the 2011 and the 1982 squads that obviously live in Milwaukee Brewers lore. And we want to discuss how they've done it. Since mid-June, they've ripped off 24 wins in the last 30 games, 7 straight on the road, and now they've completed 5 perfect road trips of 6 games or more in franchise history. And really, this one felt like the most meaningful because it was post-trade deadline, and obviously the Cubs and everyone, the Phillies reinforced what they did, the Mets. And it seems like this is a team that isn't built on superstardom. This is more of a Milwaukee team that's built in the image of what we've come to know them. A superstar leaves like Willie Adames or Devin Williams, and they replace them with the cog in the machine. And believe it or not, at the center of this is Andrew Vaughn. This is the cast off that no one saw coming. He was acquired quietly from the White Sox in June, and they sent Aaron Savali at the door. We talked about it on this podcast. We did expect Andrew Vaughn to reinvent himself in the Brewers uniform. 22 games, he's slashing 377, 444, 701 with 7 home runs and 20 RBIs. And I believe I saw the pace for 208 RBIs if he was to have 162 games at this pace. His solo home run on Wednesday added to what feels like a hot streak more and a redemption arc. This guy was batting 189 in Chicago, looked lost. So we can talk about Isaac Collins, the Rookie of the Year candidate, 3 more hits on Wednesday. Blake Perkins, fresh off the injury list, delivering a 2-run home run. And if you're not a diehard baseball fan, maybe these are names like, who is that? You wouldn't recognize them on the street, but these guys are going out there and they look like a threat come October.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You know what? Andrew Vaughn, yeah, it's unbelievable what a change of scenery can do for a guy. I think back to our NL Central preview episode where I said something along the lines of like, listen, this is the year they do not win this division. You can't think you're going to let these dudes, these star players, walk out the door every single year and that you'll just be fine because you're the Brewers, right? Hader, Willie Adames last year, Devin Williams. It just every year it seems like they're letting a big player leave because that's kind of their model. They kind of have to do it, at least they think they do. And they're proving me wrong again. Last year it was the Astros making me look like an idiot. I think this year it's going to be the Brewers. They just, like you said, seem to do everything right. A bunch of hard-nosed, gritty players. Caleb Durbin added to the mix, right, in the trade with the Yankees. Just perfect model for that team. We could go on and on down the roster, but as a team, I wanted to look at them and really see, like, is there a weakness that might crop up here? Something they're not that good at that may eventually take them down a notch. So I went back to June 1st. I know for some of the other teams earlier, we went back to July 1st. Let's look a little longer here to get a bigger picture, bigger sample size. Since June 1st, they have the second best team batting average in the majors, second best team on base percentage, seventh in slugging. This is what surprised me because I thought the one weakness I would find is that they don't have that much bop, right? William Contreras has not been quite the power hitter he was last year. Yeah, Yelich has had his moments of being really hot, but we just wonder if he's going to be able to stay healthy. But seventh since June 1st, seventh in the league in slugging. That was a surprise to me. Second best WRC plus as a team and the fourth lowest K percentage. So doing what they do, putting the ball in play, something's going to happen. In fielding, they're third in outs above average. So pretty good at that as well. Pitching department, best team ERA since June 1st. Third in K per nine. So they can strike people out. And the fifth lowest home run per nine. So it's not like they're giving up bombs all the time. So I didn't find a weakness. The only thing I'll say is you need to get the Miz healthy because I think in order to be successful in the playoffs, you want that threesome of Peralta, Woodruff, and the Miz. That's a scary, scary three-headed monster to go against in a short playoff series. I will say, if I really want to nitpick, the bullpen ERA is kind of middle of the pack. It's not great. It's definitely not bad. When I watch them, they got some arms, some guys that throw hard, spin the ball. So they passed the eye test for sure. But as far as bullpen ERA, middle of the pack. But yeah, man, it's hard not to believe in the Brewers right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to be law of average. These are guys that have never done it before. And you look at a guy like Jose Quintana, he had his first quality start since the All-Star break. Trevor McGill is, their closer, 26 save. He locked down. He got hit with that 2-out home run in the ninth, like you mentioned, for the ERA is there, but they're finding a way to get it done. And you can't expect a guy like Andrew Vaughn to keep this up. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they find a way to catch lightning in the bottle and they ride this wave all the way to a World Series title. But looking at that roster, we mentioned some of the stuff. You mentioned the Miz being out until August, but we also have Chourio also is going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks as well, battling injury. So these are things that they have to get healthy. But it seems like no matter what is rolled in front of them, Pat Murphy finds a way to figure out the secret formula and make it make sense because it feels more like a cultural thing for Milwaukee. We've discussed the Patriots teams of the past in football where you just like a plug and play. The Houston Astros are an example of it this year where you put on the uniform and you find a way to do things right. And there's some consistency and they're playing like they're all pulling in the same direction. For everything we said about the Yankees, this is the exact opposite. This is a team that believes in themselves and they're playing above their pay grade.
Yeah, they don't lose games. They find ways to win games. And I'll just finish with this. Pat Murphy, who you just mentioned, may get the very rare back-to-back manager of the year this year with what he's doing and putting this team. It's unbelievable with his pancakes in his pocket. Did you see that? He keeps a pancake in his pocket.
And then the sideline reporter, she ate
shout
the
out
pancake
to
her. Straight out of his pocket, ate the pancake.
Remind me of pork chop on a stick. Did she just eat that? She take a bite of it? Oh my God, animal!
I mean, it was warm for his body heat. I'm sure it felt like a warm pancake on a nice Sunday morning.
Rough.
The only question is, was there syrup involved? But hopefully not. His pocket would be all sticky. But who knows? Pat Murphy will do whatever it takes to win. But let's talk about one of the biggest news. And we mentioned this in the intro. If we would have recorded Monday, we wouldn't have had time to talk about this. With the Red Sox betting big on Roman Anthony, 8 years, $130 million extension, 21 years old. He walked in the Fenway Park wearing a nice tailored blue checkered suit. And he's making his commitment here. This is reshaping their franchise. They've identified him as their future face of the franchise. So obviously escalators, this climbs to 230 if he wins MVP, all-star selections, rookie of the year finish, etc. The deal begins next year, includes a $30 million club option in 2034. So it's a statement. We know that it's not just about his performance, it's about what he could do. It's about Boston's philosophy. And Craig Breslow. They're looking at the modern MLB trend of betting early on elite young talent, trying to secure some young stability before he break out. Demands $300 million. And if all things go in the direction where we believe Roman Anthony will be, this is a guy that will be at the center of their lineup for future come. And we've heard his name over and over again. They're betting big on him. And what are your thoughts? Because this is certainly a risk. There's no doubt about it. There's a risk involved here.
Yeah, I love it. Obviously the Red Sox, when you look at the amount of guys they've locked up, and a lot of them for team-friendly deals for younger players, clearly Breslow has a plan, and it's very much like the Braves of a few years ago, locking up as many of these guys as you can, and as many team-friendly game deals as you can. Risk, like you said, of course. But Roman Anthony, I mean, this guy is a guy I've loved for a long time, hits every level he goes to, and I don't think Major League Baseball is any different. His, like, if you look at the standard stat line, it might not blow you away, but if you really dig and you watch the kid, you're going to be impressed, and you're going to say, wait, this kid's only 21 years old. Like, he might be the face of baseball in a few years. He just strikes me as a kid who's going to get a little bit better at everything every single year. And he already hits the ball incredibly hard and gets on base at a fantastic clip. He knows how to get on base. The power is going to increase. He's going to learn how to use Fenway and the ballpark dimensions to his advantage. He's going to get more and more comfortable, more and more confident. I just think the sky is the limit for this kid. It reminds me of the Acuna deal. I think for a long time, for many years, 8 more years, basically, you're going to be constantly saying how underpaid he is, like we've been saying about Acuna, obviously, when he's healthy at least. Roman Anthony debuted on June 9th. Since then, he has the 6th best hard hit percentage of all players, 56.9%. Hits the ball hard. He's 4th on the Red Sox with a 127 WRC plus since June 9th. He's 1st on the Red Sox in on-base percentage at 392 since that time. And he's 17th among all major leaguers in on-base percentage since the time of his debut. And again, only 21 years old. I think the other story this lends itself to, listen, Breslow, there's a lot of things he does that piss Red Sox fans and just baseball fans off in general. And he seems like a little bit of a weird dude, not the best communicator sometimes. There's been a lot of stuff going on in Boston all year, which seems like miscommunication. But what he has done is he has set this team up to maybe be able to spend some big money on free agents in the next couple years to make this team a huge threat. You got Roman Anthony, an everyday player, locked up. Rafaela as well. You got the Crochet trade done and then locked him up as well. And I'm not saying that's necessarily he's being paid, less than he should be. He got a big deal, but still did a good job getting that frontline ace starter. You can go down the list. They have guys locked up that are going to be gigantic contributors for a long time, which means you can spend big other places potentially, whether it's the rotation or elsewhere. Alex Cora was asked if he's intrigued by the upcoming free agency of Kyle Schwarber, and Cora didn't hold back. He said very interested, and then doubled down, very, very interested. Schwarber had a short cup of coffee in Boston. If Philly fails to, keep him there long term, which I kind of doubt. As a Met fan, I'm just expecting any day now for an extension to be announced with Kyle Schwarber. But if he does reach free agency, it sounds like the Red Sox could get on the phone and have a quick conversation with him. And if it's not him, it could be someone else. The point is, I think they're going to have some money to play with. And listen, that division clearly has proven itself to be maybe the cream of the crop when we talk about the divisions in baseball. And I don't think that's going to change. But the Red Sox may be setting themselves up to be the best team as far as years in a row, if you really look at the whole picture.
So if we look at this, I mean, this deal obviously puts him in a group that you mentioned, Ronald Acuna Jr., who signed that 8-year, $100 million contract with the Atlanta Braves in 2019. But Julio Rodriguez, 14 years, $400 million. Corbin Carroll, just 32 MLB games into his career, 8 years, $111 million. Michael Harris, Spencer Strider, Bobby Witt Jr. signed that 14-year deal just recently, February 2024, believe it or not, which is the largest contract in Royals history. There is a risk curve as well before you can look at some of the names. Like you mentioned, Wander Franco signed that 11-year, 182 at 20 years old, but obviously was living up to it. Criminal investigation, all the things aside. But we look at the other things. Scott Kingery of the Phillies, 6 years, $24 million before his first big league at bat. Not that much money, but still committed some money to a guy. John Singleton was like the first one, I believe, 2014, 5-year, $10 million extensions. He was released before the deal was up. Evan White for the Mariners, 6 years, $24 million before debuting in 2020. And really, I mean, the thing is, like you said, it makes sense in the algorithm of what the Red Sox are trying to do. he's thrived. We watch what he's done. He has more walks than strikeouts, 19 RBIs in 46 games. He had a walk-off under his belt. His maturity, his preparation makes you believe that veterans coaches, it's a guy you want to build around. And Trevor Story came out and talked about this. He said, quote, just a special person, a special player, obviously someone who's going to be around for a long time. The Red Sox are looking at this as a philosophical shift. They let go some homegrown stars. We mentioned Mookie before extensively. Xander Bogaerts. They traded Rafi Devers, and they're looking to build on this core and keep this new core. We recognize them, all these names, building around them. I think it starts at Roman Anthony. So I think having them, because I really believe baseball teams view windows. They view the risk and the value, and with the escalating free agent prices and the threat of labor disputes, as we mentioned before, they're incentivized to act early, even if it means placing $100 million bets on a 21-year-old with fewer than 200 plate appearances. This is calculated, but his deal, as you mentioned before, similar to Ronald Acuna, could look, and I believe will look like a bargain in just a year, 2 years down the line. I believe the projections are there, and he is right now the Red Sox hope, and I think they believe in him.
I do. I agree with you. And if it goes sour, the Red Sox can just do what the Red Sox do in a couple of years into the contract and trade him out west somewhere. I mean, Colorado can take him or something. But in all seriousness, like this is what I was looking for before. So for the next 5 seasons, the Red Sox will have Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, who also 8-year extension, a lot less than his buddy. I think it was like 60 million, like half or less than half of what Anthony got. But
well, he's in Worcester still, so he's hanging out.
Yeah, he's getting hot again, and he's trying to figure it out. I think he's still a big part of the future. But so they'll have Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, Ceddanne Rafaela, Brian Bayo, and Garrett Crochet for a combined $67.5 million AAV. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can go do some other stuff to make the team stronger around it.
Yeah, for sure. And Boston has a lot to be excited for, not just this year, but as you mentioned, we see years like 2034, which is crazy to even see on paper. But we would be remiss if we didn't mention the Speedway Classic. I know it's so far in the past at this point, held at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Weeks of hype, maybe misguided as far as letting the game even play out in the rain that first night. They should have decided just to play on Sunday. During the rain delay, 1.78 million viewers during it. They peaked 2.4 million during the 50 minutes of limited game action. By all accounts, they tried here, and all these sort of special games have been good. All the criticism I've seen here, they're comparing this to baseball's Fire Fest with the no buns and no food and on the nachos with no cheese. There wasn't supposed to be everybody in the concession line doing what they did because of the rain delay. I think they were exposed here.
They're exposed.
Yeah, and I don't think this was a bad thing. I think really their biggest misstep was looking at the weather and said, let's just play this on Sunday. I hope this doesn't take them away from wanting to do more things like this, because I thought the optics were really cool. The jerseys look great. I think there is a real appetite for theatrical showcases in Major League Baseball. We've seen it year after year. Probably they're trying to chase the Field of Dreams hype that we got, that feeling what we saw all those years ago. But the ratings confirm that this is something people want to watch in the future. So I hope they continue to go in that direction.
Yeah, they're a little snake bit here. I mean, even before, like, they're building the game around Ronald Acuna and Ellie De La Cruz. Then Ronald Acuna goes down with the calf Achilles injury, so he wasn't there. And then Strider, who, like, then they started trying to build, all right, Strider and Chase Burns both throw 100, right? Because they're trying to go with the speed theme. It makes sense at the racetrack. And then Strider gets scratched. And all right. Basically, it's Ellie De La Cruz. Like, just watch Ellie De La Cruz. They didn't do a good job here. This was their first failure in my mind as for these specialty games. I think they've knocked it out of the park for the other ones. This was a rough one. Not prepared for the rain is inexcusable. You're a professional sporting league. Like, come on, I know you're not used to having 80-something thousand fans, but talk to somebody who's done events like that before and figure it out. You can't just sit there and think that rain is not a possibility. The food situation, terrible. What you said before about the rain and letting them play when it's still raining and then having to stop after an inning. It just really bad decision making. And I'm watching it as an LA De La Cruz fantasy owner. Like, dude, take these guys off the field. Someone's going to get hurt. Like, the infield is clearly muddy. They clearly were hoping they got lucky and the rain stopped, because they let that game go in that first inning way longer than they usually do. Like, you're seeing pools of water in the infield. And I think everyone's wondering what the hell is happening. So I think they're lucky to get out of there unscathed as far as a player getting hurt because of your poor decision making. I do not think it's going to stop them from trying these specialty games in the future. I'm sure they already know where they're going next. I kind of wish they would just do the Field of Dreams game every year, but I think what they're trying to do is get to the states that don't have a professional team, which I respect that, and find different places, cool, unique places in these other states that don't have Major League Baseball to bring it there. And I respect that. But if you're going to do it, you got to be prepared for everything.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And we're going to head down to South Beach and talk about those Marlins. And the question we want to ask everybody, and I know you put it over there on Twitter at Tablesetters Pod, do you believe in the Miami Marlins? And they are just off sweeping the Yankees for the first time in franchise history, record-setting crowds in the process. And they're being celebrated across baseball as one of the more feel-good stories. It's a story that we didn't expect. They climbed all the way back to 500 after being 16 games under in early June, which is a testament to what they've done so far. Best rotation ERA in the league over the past 6 weeks, and they're doing it with a payroll of just $96 million, barely 1/3 of what teams like the Yankees or the Dodgers spend. So to me, Devin, on the surface, this looks like a Cinderella run, but I can't help but be pessimistic. Peeling back the excitement, you find a little bit something more dangerous, insidious with this, a team being celebrated not for its ambition, but a little bit of apathy, because it's a team that has been, in spite of decisions made by those in charge, not spending towards what they should be. And I feel as if, watching what they have on the field, I'm even more angered by them not investing in the team because of what's already there. They didn't push the chips in at the trade deadline. Obviously, they're not going to do that. They didn't reinforce anything. They don't spend it all. My thing is, baseball, especially right now, looking at it, it loves efficiency. They look at stories like this, suggest that you don't need a big payroll to win. They're going to sell this to your fan base, and that you can, quote unquote, do it the right way. But to me, this is like kind of a bad thing, because I think what the Marlins doing right now by competing, and let's just say they get into a wild card spot, other teams are going to use this as, this is the narrative they're going to run with come free agency and say, we don't have to spend. Look what the Marlins did. So I want to be very careful about celebrating a team like this, because if you're telling owners they don't have to invest, you could just build depth and take risk or chase windows or whatever they're trying to do, and you just need a few hot pitchers, that is a dangerous thing for baseball. So let's not get too hard ahead of ourselves celebrating this Marlins team that it's been exciting, but in me, what could have been if you would have spent on the field already?
Yeah, you sold me. I mean, you put it perfectly. I think, everyone loves an underdog. When you just look at it point blank, you're like, oh, this is cool. These guys are overperforming, and Bendix didn't trade everyone at the deadline away. Like, so maybe he believes in them. But what you said is more important. Like, all we keep on hearing from Rob Manfred is that, it needs to be a more even playing field. And he's taking the salary cap approach. Fans and players, I think, want the salary floor approach for the most part. And when a team like this does this, it's actually kind of bad for that argument. And like you said, there could be copycats using that reason. Like, oh, we're just going to, not spend much money and build up with the guys we have here. So it's a shame that there is that negative part of this story, but you have to realize it's not a good thing. It really isn't for the game itself. Now, if you're asking me, do I believe in the team on the field and the product on the field? To a degree, yes. So since June 1st, they're 33-24. I think they just lost to the Braves like a minute ago. So let's say 33-25. 257 team batting average, which is fourth among all major league teams from that time. 413 slug, which is middle of the pack. We know they don't hit for much power. 318 on base percentage, which is tied for sixth. 20% K rate. In a good way. So they're not striking out that much. Fifth best as far as the least amount of strikeouts per at bat or plate appearance. 3.74 team ERA, which is seventh in the league. So all these things show, like, yeah, they're actually like legit. This is not all smoke and mirrors. Like, they've become a pretty decent team here. But I do buy your argument. And I do find it interesting to connect it to your Yankees earlier. We've heard this stat over and over since the Marlins sweep. The Marlins, the only team with an all-time winning record franchise-wide against the Yankees, the only franchise with an all-time winning record against the Yankees. As a Yankee fan, do you feel that way? Like, ever since Josh Beckett in that World Series, like when you play the Marlins, do you just feel like bad things are going to happen?
I mean, I can't help but look back at the 2003 World Series and always think about the slow dribbler from Jorge Posada and just them winning the World Series on Yankee Stadium field and all that. If you would have asked me, I probably would have said that the Marlins didn't have a winning record against them, because this is the first time the Marlins have ever swept them. Obviously, interleague, you're not playing them every single year at the same clip that you're playing all your division rivals, but they're a bugaboo for the Yankees. There's no doubt about it. No matter what uniform, who's in it, they definitely play them tough. And you look at this weekend for them, it was a success. I mean, they pulled in over 100,000 fans for the weekend series, and the Yankees will do that for you, whether the Marlins played well or not. But again, I want to caution everybody by saying that we don't want MLB celebrating this too hard because it doesn't hold ownership accountable. What we've been saying all offseason for franchises like Miami to go in there and spend. I don't want to normalize a model like this that sacrifices long-term competitiveness for this illusion of being able to win or get lucky or whatever, making something out of nothing, because they're being cheered for making something out of nothing. Let's be clear, but maybe we should be asking the question, why was there nothing to begin with? Why didn't we invest in this team if you believed
Yeah.
in Kyle Stowers and Agustin Ramirez and Sandy Alcantara and on it goes, Yuri Perez. So we don't want to normalize this, but there is a lot of enthusiasm. Maybe people can get excited. We're seeing Marlins Twitter be excited, and that's awesome for baseball. But let's hold them accountable this offseason and say, we saw what we could do with nothing on the table and you not investing in us. Now throw some money at some free agents and get us some players in-house that can support a guy like Kyle Stowers as a middle of the order bat.
Agreed. Yeah. If the question is, do we believe in this long term, the whole picture, it's, to me, it's TBD at best, to be determined. Let's see what Bendix does, because they're also like, this whole thing started because they're in financial trouble. So like, don't be surprised if some fan favorites, like all of a sudden Otto Lopez is out of here. I think Stowers, they're willing to say like, this is our guy. It's funny because when we talked to Jack McMullen, their radio announcer, we asked them the question, like, listen, they've always been able to make great pitchers, but we just feel like they're still searching for the face of the franchise on the offensive side, even though they have a couple good pieces. And since that interview, I think Stowers has emerged as that dude, the guy who can be a bankable star face of the franchise for years to come. But yeah, you're right. TBD. And the other thing is, I heard so many people were celebrating the attendance that they had in Miami, which again, good. Like we want to see, but like, a lot of that's driven by the Yankee fans that are living down south. Like, I don't mean to be a ball buster here, but I found that a little like not off-putting, but like, can we like mention the reason why? Like, sure, there might be some more Miami fans there than usual because they're playing well, but I also think a large part of that is the Yankee fandom that was also in attendance.
Well, I mean, let's look at the next home series that the Marlins have and see what the attendance looks like, because this team's playing well enough for people to come out and watch them play. So it'll be, like you said, TBD. Just some two quick hitters to discuss before we get out of here and talk about red hot and ice cold. Jen Paywall is going to make her MLB debut as the first woman umpire in regular season history. So this is going to be the first woman umpire regular season baseball game, breaking a barrier that stood for more than 150 years. So this is not just a one-time thing. Baseball is a little bit short to the table here because we've seen it happen in other sports. NBA, that had Violet Palmer in 1997. Dee Cantor became the first woman to officiate an NBA regular season game. NFL joined the party here. Sarah Thomas, the first full-time female referee. Later, she worked the 2021 Super Bowl. And in the NHL, they have two first women officials, Kelly Cook, Katie Guile, and Kendall Hanley and Kirsten Welsh, but they have not worked any major league games as far as the NHL goes. But kudos to them. I think she's going to be doing the 3 games for the Marlins and the Braves series in Atlanta. So started tonight. Including the ends of Saturday's doubleheader on Sunday. She'll work behind the plate, marking a moment for baseball. So this is a big thing and something that we have to see. She's kind of climbed through the ranks. She was in AAA, and then she worked the AAA championship. She was in MLB spring training games last year. So just something we want to make note of here.
Yeah, and you're right. They are late to the party here for whatever reason. I feel like I've seen female officials in these other sports for so long now. Just you don't even think twice about it. But good for her. It's always cool to be kind of that barrier breaker. And listen, there's a lot of things in life that women do better than we do. So don't be surprised. It's just funny though, because I think back to I don't know how many years ago this was now. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 15. But I remember watching a Mets game. They were playing the Giants, or no, it was either the Giants or the Padres. And I want to say it's the Padres. Whoever it was, the visiting team had a female in the dugout. I don't know what her job was, what her position on the team was, but there was a female in the dugout that was working for the team. And Keith Hernandez, bless his heart, like I don't want to come down on Keith. I love him. Like on air was just like, is that a woman in the dugout? Like he was astonished. And I'm not going to sit here and criticize him for it because he's from a time and place where it's like that wouldn't have been said, and he had never seen it before. So I think it was an honest reaction. Probably would have been better off air, not than on, but that's just kind of who Keith is and why he's entertaining, to be honest. But to get from there now to here, where she's going to be on the field, or someone will be on the field, a woman will be on the field umpiring the game. It's interesting, but it was a long time from those two things to actually happen.
So finishing the stories here in our meat of the order, we want to talk about Grayson Rodriguez missing the entire 2025 season. So It's another gut punch to the Orioles' dismal season at this point, and he's going to be undergoing elbow surgery and, of course, done for the year. Wouldn't bring him back anyway because the Orioles are not being competitive. This is going to be classified as an elbow debridement surgery, so it's going to be removing some bone spurs, but it's not as severe as Tommy John. But the impact obviously is significant for this team. And I guess the conversation among people in Baltimore is, can we ever rely on Grayson Rodriguez in 2026 and beyond? So, I mean, this is a guy who's been injured. The lat strain in 2022, he had a shoulder injury in 23, the triceps issue during this spring training, and then obviously the recurring elbow pain has been happening for like 3 to 4 years, and now it's requiring surgery. So this sucks, man. Grayson Rodriguez, I feel like we're never going to see him fully relive to who he should be. This is a guy who's supposed to be a centerpiece for the Orioles rotation for years.
Yeah, former extremely hyped pitching prospect. If you don't remember, I mean, he was as hyped as they come, and we've just never gotten to see him. And this is a lot of injuries on the list now, and that doesn't usually bode well for these guys, hard throwers. I mean, it to happen in the kind of the beginning of your major league career too stinks. I mean, I always think of Matt Harvey, who obviously got off to such a great start and then had one big injury and then came back and then another big injury and just kind of snowballed to the point of he just wasn't the same guy anymore. Couldn't do what he used to be able to do. The body wasn't letting him. So you hope that's not where Grayson ends up being here. But as far as the Orioles organization, no, you cannot count on him. If he makes it back and is an effective pitcher, it's like a bonus at this point. If he is in your plans as a critical piece, and I know he's expected to have a regular offseason, but if he is in your plan as a regular piece for next season, beginning of next season, you're making a big mistake again if you're the Orioles. Trevor Rogers has been unreal. I mean, we all criticized the Orioles for that trade last year, where they traded Stowers away and Connor Norby for Rogers. And we're just starting to see, I guess, what the Orioles had seen or were hoping for or thought they could do with Rogers just took longer than I think anyone expected. He's been unbelievable. And if they're sitting there thinking this is legit, which, I mean, it's several starts now, so I guess you kind of have to think this is legit. And he did have former success too. So if you think the guy is back, he's got 1 year of arbitration left. I wonder if they look at an extension there. And maybe not a super long-term thing because he's dealt with some injury problems himself, but maybe you try to get some more years there to give yourself something to hang your hat on. But this accentuates the need for pitching in Baltimore. Their offense recently has shown what we all expected them to be. That series last week against Toronto, in the wins and losses, they were putting up runs at a really good clip. Like, that is what that offense can be when these guys get going. I know they sent a lot of people out in trades, which I think they should have, and I think they did the right thing. But it's pitching in Baltimore. It'll be interesting to see if they look at the free agent market. As of now, you got Framber Valdez, unless Houston surprises us and suddenly does an extension. I don't think they're going to. He's out there. Certainly, in my mind, if I'm a Baltimore fan, I'm hoping they take a good long look at him. Zach Gallen, Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, Ranger Suarez. That's a good one. Dustin May, I know, is not necessarily the caliber of those other guys I named, but he's a free agent as well. Still a young live arm that I think you have to look at and think you could mold into something significant. And there's some other guys out there, Michael Kings of the world, that have a mutual option with their franchise. If that doesn't end up working out, there's other guys out there. So it's the same old story for Baltimore. Very unfortunate for Grayson Rodriguez, but if you're the Baltimore Orioles, your team still is not far away. Like, you could be right back in the thick of things of the AL East next year if you do what you need to do to the pitching staff in the offseason.
Yeah, maybe this season was what they needed, Mike Elias, the front office, to be a little bit more sobering, because I think they were riding high of we can do no wrong. And what could have went wrong has gone wrong this year, whether it be Corbin Burns leaving and not being a part of what their plan was, or Felix Bautista getting hurt. Like, things didn't go right. And I think, like they said before, Mike Elias felt like he was a genius. We saw the Pitcher List article that he wants to win his way. Going back to Grayson Rodriguez, he needs to be penciled in as a hopeful number 4, number 5 going forward. I think there is a world where we see him contribute, because you don't want to write anybody off. We mentioned Nate Eovaldi, all those injuries he had, and now he's pitching at the top of his level. Obviously not the same pitcher he was all those years ago. He has really changed the way he's approached, but he's effective. And I think if Grayson Rodriguez is a competitor, and we know that he is at every single level, we've seen him go and try his best to go out there because he's shown flashes. It's very comparable to Steven Strasburg. Strasburg will be known for like higher peaks, but injury after injury derailed his career. And I think the long-term success is going to really be adjusting his mechanics. And the workload. I mean, and you got to hope for some better luck, because I think there's some bad luck that has like kind of interfered with Grayson and what he's done here. But I think he will be a part of the Orioles' future, but you can't rely on him to be the ace of the staff that we expected him to be year after year. Just at this point, there's too much in the favor of like things just don't go right for this guy.
No doubt about it. We should, before we get off the Orioles, mention that there's some other guys. It wasn't just Rodriguez and some of these other guys that have gotten hurt. Like, they've had a lot of other guys in that
Zach
pitching
Eflin
staff
got
get hurt.
hurt. Bradish, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Bradish. So Kyle Bradish is a name to watch. At one point was looking ace-like for them. So if he can come back and maybe we get a look at him before the season ends, which will be helpful for them to know what they have in him. Even a Tyler Wells, who's been pitching at AAA on his way back, hopefully before September. Like, that's going to be really important for the Orioles to get a look at some of those dudes that can pitch before the season's done, to see if they think, all right, we're pretty sure this guy can help us. But overall, like, you have to go fortify the rotation in the offseason however you can.
All right, well, let's head to ice cold and red hot to finish up our episode here. All right, so let's start with hot here. I'm going to start with Trevor Story in Boston right now. Don't look now. He's catching fire, and he's doing it at a right time for the Red Sox, clawing for that postseason berth. And over his last 7 games, he's slashing an absurd 476, 560, over 1,000 OPS. Good for 1.655 with 10 hits in his last 21 at-bats. 4 doubles, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 7 runs scored, and 2 stolen bases, filling up the score sheet here. And I think what doesn't stand out to me, and among other people, the power surge is what's there. Everyone's looking at this. But it's the authority in which he's driving the ball fields. I've been watching closely. He's on my fantasy team. He's finally healthy. He's seeing the ball well. And 10 hits of his last 21 at-bats have gone for extra bases. So 47.6 extra base hit rate. This is a guy, injuries inconsistent. We've discussed it at length here. This version of Trevor Story looks like the threat that Boston believed they were getting when he signed that 6-year deal with them. And if he is what he is advertised right now, and he's involved in that lineup, he's playing good defense. I mean, he transforms and lengthens this lineup in a big way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and good for him too, man. Like, a couple months into the season, some Boston fans were trying to run him out of town already, and now he's a big part of that lineup, like you said. So I've always been a Trevor Story fan. So fun to see him kind of really show everybody and remind everybody who he can be. On my side for Red Hot, a couple of guys I'll name here: Shea Langoliers. We touched upon the A's and all the talent they have in the offense. He's been unconscious since the All-Star break, hitting 425 since the break, 10 home runs, 17 RBIs, 273 WRC plus, which leads everybody other than his teammate Nick Kurtz. Kyle Schwarber, who we briefly mentioned before in his free agency upcoming, he's the only other guy in the league who has the same amount of home runs since the All-Star break, so we should mention him as well. 10 home runs, 25 RBIs for Schwarber, unbelievable. And then on the pitching side, Cade Horton. Don't hear this enough. He might be saving the Chicago Cubs brass a little bit right now, because they have a lot of bad will their way with the pitching moves they did not make. But Horton has been a pleasant, I don't want to say surprise, because he's a hyped prospect as well, but maybe better than we expected this year. Since the All-Star break, 4 starts, has not given up an earned run, 0.75 whip in those 4 starts, 3-0. 100% left on base percentage. Obviously, no runs, so he's been able to strand every runner that gets on with him on the mound. So he's been impressive, and I think, again, the question for him, just like a lot of the other Cubs starters, is can he continue a solid performance, or is he going to hit a wall and they're going to look back with regret?
I want to put some love on Jesus Luzardo, and I know that he's been a guy that maybe had sort of the script already written at the beginning of the season, but he has, to me, flipped it for us. And we're looking at Luzardo delivering back-to-back gems, 13 scoreless innings, 13 strikeouts, no walks, 2 earned runs allowed. And his numbers over those 2 outings, I mean, it goes beyond that, but just wanted to focus on these 2 last outings. As I mentioned before, with the 13 Ks, his whip is less than 1 at this point, 13-0 as far as K walk ratio. And I think Philly's Twitter and Philly's fan base are trying to figure out what's going on and what changed. He's been more surgical with his command. So he's really living on the edge. He's avoiding damage. That's what he was doing earlier in this year, where he's leading balls over the plate and they were really hurting him. He's allowed fewer than 1 base runner per inning and has leaned heavily on that fastball changeup. So only 9 walks over 18 innings in one stretch, which, I mean, that was the walk rate that we saw prior. And now he's striking out guys to no walks as far as what we're looking at. So if he could be this version of Luzardo for Philadelphia come October, I mean, and looking at what they've built here with the bullpen, I mean, this is a guy that can anchor them going forward.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy this year. He's the kind of guy this year, he's all or nothing. He seems to be absolutely lights out, or he gets roughed up big time. That's what I've seen from him. But overall, more good starts than bad, surely. And Philly, man, I mean, Aaron Nola on the way back. Everyone seemingly forgotten about Aaron Nola. I believe we'll get one more rehab start. Has been pretty successful in his two rehab starts. So you get a guy like him back that lengthens that rotation. And not a lot of people are talking about the Phillies. They don't get talked about as much for as much star power as they have. To me, like, they very well may be the most dangerous team at the moment. It all depends on how you head into the playoffs, right, as October begins. So we'll wait and see there. But on the ice cold side, I usually go with players for red hot ice cold. Every once in a while, I go a different way. I'm going to choose a team, and that is the other New York team. We already criticized one. My Mets, absolutely ice cold. They fit this category to a T. Since the All-Star break, they've been a hard watch, by the way. Like, I feel like I told you before, you're one of the calmer, cooler-headed Yankee fans that I know, sport fans in general, maybe. I consider myself a relatively level-headed Mets fan. Like, I don't see every loss as the end of the world. I don't see every slump as, oh my God, this guy's garbage and he's overpaid. But they're to the point where they're really pissing me off. Like, I got to say, I'm watching these guys and I'm like, what? There's too many really good players to look this just incompetent. And the entertainment factor we could just talk about. It's just hard to actually watch a full Met game right now. But to get to the actual statistics here, since the All-Star break, they're hitting .213 as a team, dead last in the major leagues. Slugging .345, dead last as well. And Carlos Mendoza came out and said he just feels like they're, as a team, they've just lacked conviction at the plate. Like, if you're going up there with a plan, you have to buy into your plan and go with it. Like, don't try to change it. I remember I had that struggle as a player myself where there'd be times you go up there and you have the plan. You're like, all right, not going to swing at the first pitch, going to take a look, and then I'm going to look for this. I'm going to zone into this. This is what I'm looking for. And then, like, right before the windup, your mind just changes. You can't do that, especially at the major league level. A few months ago, or maybe less than that, Steve Cohen tweeted out something about the Fab Four, which he's referring to Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Brandon Nimmo. Well, let's look at the Fab Four. Since the All-Star break, Lindor hitting 195, Soto, the $50 million man, hitting 177, Alonso 179, Nimmo 232, the best of the bunch. And I'll say this, Juan Soto, you told me yesterday when I said this in the fantasy chat that you think I'm getting Soto fatigue already. I like his theatrics. I like the facial expressions, the cockiness, but there is a time and a place, and you have to read the room. Gavin Williams is no-hitting us yesterday, and Soto in the ninth inning breaks it up with a home run. Impressive shot to center field, no doubt, like quite a shot. He stares at this, smiles kind of in Williams' direction as Williams turns, watches it, and obviously disappointed, and then rounds the bases as slowly as I've seen someone round the bases in a long time. That is not the type of home run where you do that shit. Your team's been getting embarrassed, not just yesterday, but for weeks now. And you're part of the reason hitting 177 since the All-Star break. The cocky jog around the bases, that is one where you put your head down, run around the bases, go in the dugout, no theatrics, because this guy has dominated you all game. And I get it. He's happy that he broke up the no-hitter, kind of like a gotcha, wink and a smile. I didn't like it. They're losing too much. Maybe if they weren't on this losing streak, I would have been fine with it. But as a Met fan, it just really rubbed me the wrong way.
I mean, losers of 8 of their last 10, 4 straight. And I think if the Yankees weren't an absolute dumpster fire, as far as accountability goes, the conversation would all be about the Mets on sports radio. No one's really talking about it. I know if you have the long form 6-hour drive shows, but they are talking about the Mets, and callers are complaining like you, as far as people that are feeling passionate watching them day to day. But for the most part, this slump is happening in a lot of obscurity because people are more focused on the Yankees and really the embarrassment that has been the Yankees. Because even though the Mets are cold, they're not embarrassing themselves on the field. And I think that's the stark difference between both teams in New York. But the Mets, at some point, they have to get going. Things have to turn the other direction. They're only 2.5 games back from Philly. They built themselves up to a spot where they can sustain something like this. And like you mentioned before, whether you're losing in big ways or not, you want to see some some excitement, some energy from these teams, and these losses have been tough losses. They look absolutely lifeless against Cleveland, and that's not what you want in front of big crowds at Citi Field. These fans are going out there looking to support the Mets in any moment. Even that the Soto home run got the crowd loud. Citi Field's been one of the loudest ballparks in all of baseball all year, and there's been nothing to cheer about really amongst the last 4 games at least, but the last month or so, the Mets have been scuffling in a big way. Luckily for them, they've built up this cushion to sustain this, but they have to turn around because Philly's going to pull away. You have to find a way to keep pace with them.
Yeah, we were lucky that they just haven't gotten crazy hot, or after they do, they get kind of cold. They've been very similar to
they're 5-5 right now in the last 10. So it's like they found a way to find bad luck losses as well. But it's gonna be tough down the stretch.
Yeah, I'll just say credit to the Mets fans in attendance yesterday, because as bad as the Mets have been playing, Gavin Williams gets pulled in the 9th, I think, 1 out away from a complete game. They give him a standing ovation by Met fans. Obviously, there's some Guardian fans in the mix too, but majority Met fans, standing ovation. To do that in the frustration of losing 8 of 9, I was very impressed.
I mean, New York is one of the best, more intelligent markets, especially for baseball. We know when we're seeing greatness, and Gavin Williams looked great yesterday. And not that you want him to get a no-hitter, but you appreciate what you're watching in real time.
Yeah.
A conversation that's for another time. You mentioned Schwarber as far as his free agency looming and everything we're seeing leading our baseball with 94 RBIs, 40 home runs, and he's really the emotional engine of the first place Phillies surging towards this playoff spot. I mentioned in jest in our chat just about how Shohei Ohtani and like Kyle Schwarber is more of a case than people are really making it. I think you can really make the case, especially with Ohtani, since he started pitching again, the offense has definitely taken a downward slide. Schwarber, to me, has been the true MVP, and he's on pace to blow past 100 RBIs by mid-August. His presence, to me, is the most important part of this Phillies lineup. And yeah, he's the co-star to Bryce Harper and everything that's going there, but he represents the city, in my opinion. He's raw, unapologetic. The bat sounds different on the ball for him. I think you mentioned before being non-tendered by the Cubs after 2020, the Red Sox letting him walk after 21. I don't want to get too hyperbolic about Schwarber and what we're seeing, but we're seeing a very special season from him. And I'm wondering for people out there, he'll be at Old Timers Days at Cubs games. He will be out there with the 2016 team, all that. But I feel like he's more of a Philly than he's ever been any of these other guys.
TBD. Let's see if they re-sign him or what they have, how much success they have this season in the postseason. But he has broken through to the next level of star. Just this week, I've heard what the conversation you just brought up. Is he the MVP? I heard that conversation. I've heard the conversation of, is he actually the face of the Phillies over Bryce Harper now? And I've also heard the conversation of, wait a minute, could Kyle Schwarber make the Hall of Fame? Because we think of a guy with such a low average. He was doing this a few years ago, like the home run numbers with like a below 200 average. And then the average creeped up.
that year.
Yeah,
yep,
it's been a little more.
47 home runs that year.
A little more respectable. But if he reaches the 500 home run mark, which is very much in play for him, like Hall of Famer, very interesting discussions. And first player ever to hit 38 or more home runs on his first 4 years on a team. So impressive in a lot of different ways. He just gets hot, and he's one of those guys, when he gets hot, it's just every night.
And I want to finish with this for Schwarber, and we can have this conversation and further. He's only 32. He's a year younger than Judge, a year older than Ohtani. And he's right. To me, he's still in his peak right now, right in the middle of the pennant race for the Phillies, playing important games. Maybe we will have the conversation. Is he a Hall of Famer? People will look at the redefinition of what a Hall of Famer is. But when you watch him play, this is a guy that is one of the more dangerous hitters we've seen in the last 15, 20 years. This is a guy who's redefining what it is. And that World Series run, like I mentioned, 2016, people are going to remember in that he tore his ACL, the LCL in April. He returned just in time for the World Series, 7 hits, 17 at bats. He was a big part of that World Series win in first in 108 years for the Cubs. And 6 months after reconstructive knee surgery, he was their most dangerous hitter. I think what we're seeing, again, going back, I think he's more of a Philly than he was a National, than he was a Cub or a Red Sox. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is a guy that we're going to look at as just going forward. He is, I don't know, man. We're seeing something special with him.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the rare player that his best years are after 30.
Yeah. It's unreal to watch. So, and again, is the beauty of Kyle Schwarber. When he does connect, the results are majestic. But we're going to come around third here. We're going to put the finishing touches on episode 98 here as we get out of the door here. All right, Devin, as we wrap up the episode here, anything that you're keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
Yeah, so Little League World Series here. We're just about to Williamsport. They're finishing up the regionals here in these next couple days. We're Long Islanders here, so I'm going to shout out the St. James Smithtown Bulls. They're in the regional final for the Metro Regional tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on Friday, and they've been absolutely tearing it up. A buddy of mine that I played baseball with for several years, Brian, he is the president of that Little League. So not the coach of the team, but the president of the entire Little League. So pretty cool that I know someone involved in that. And obviously because of that, well, even if I didn't have a connection, I'd be rooting for them as a Long Island team. But I mean, I think a year or two ago, we had Massapequa in there. But other than that, I feel like the New York representation or the Metro region representation is not usually a Long Island team. So it'll be very cool to see. Hopefully they can push through and get that last win and we see them in Williamsport.
So for me, I'm looking at Saturday, Yankee Stadium, Old Timers Day, and it's going to be before the game against the Astros. They're going to be honoring the 2000 World Series championship, 25th anniversary. We want to age ourselves here, obviously against your New York Mets in the Subway Series, but it'll be the first time in a couple of years at this point. 2019 was the last Old Timers Day game. It's going to be returning to action before. So we're going to see some of the old timer guys out there and some names in there. Jesse Barfield's going to be out there on the field. Aaron Boone's going to play. Homer Bush, Chris Chambliss, Roger Clemens will allegedly be there. David Cohn, Johnny Damon's going to get on the field. Bucky Dent, and noticeable by his absence is going to be Derek Jeter. So honoring a lot of the players here. El Duque will be there. Ron Guidry. So celebrating the Yankees, and a lot of fans and people around baseball think the Yankees are holier than thou. But to me, this is what makes the Yankees honoring their passing, paying homage to the greats that have come through and wore that uniform. So kudos to them. And 25th anniversary of the 2000 World Series. One of the 96 was special to me because I was 7 years old, 98, obviously 99, but 2000 to me, it felt, I mean, it captured the city. If you didn't live in New York, and Devin, you and I both did growing up, it was everywhere. It became, it was beyond words what it meant to New York City to have the Yankees and Mets in the World Series. And for me as a fan, I remember where I was watching that final out with Piazza blasting the ball. Felt like it was out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
To watch the Yankees celebrate at Shea Stadium, fundamental memories for me in a good way. I'm sure it was more of the bad things for you, but it made our fandom even stronger going forward on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, very 2000 World Series for the Mets was very much like the 2015 World Series for the Mets, were lost in 5 games, I believe. 5 games or 6? 5.
It was 5 games, 4-1. Yeah.
Yeah, so same thing as 2015, but you felt like the Mets were in every single game, and if it wasn't for a mistake here or there or a big hit by a Yankee, like that, they could have easily won more games and maybe even the series. At least that's as a Met fan, you feel like you weren't getting blown out every night, that's for sure. But entertaining series, and I like you in my childhood remember like everyone taking their news days, and you could either take the Mets part or the Yankees part, and like you would hang it up on your front door so you could drive around or ride your bike around every neighborhood and see every single household, either a Met fan or a Yankee fan, and know who they were rooting for. And obviously some houses like yours were divided amongst Mets and Yankee fans. So a lot of fun. But honestly, when I think about it, and I thought about it a lot last year because it was not too far from happening, I don't know if as an adult, I don't know if my heart could take it. Like, I don't know if I could take it, to be honest, at this point in my life. I think it would stress me out too much. I don't know.
Maybe we will see another in our lifetime and we'll be able to get on here and talk about it. But we appreciate you guys listening to the show. Again, we apologize for the wait. We were a week removed from the trade deadline, but we'll be back next week talking all things baseball and breaking things down, maybe talking more about Kyle Schwarber and why he is the National League MVP and potentially going forward where he will be. But if you want to support our show, follow us at Tablesetters Pod on both Twitter and on Instagram. Please leave a 5-star review. And also go to Dugout Mugs. Use the code TS10, save 10% at checkout, and support us as well. It goes a very long way. Any final thoughts before we exit, Devin?
Just Mets. Like, let's get going. Metsies, like someone light a fire under their ass. That's all. If they happen to be listening to Tablesetters, let's go.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. Enjoy the weekend of baseball, and we appreciate everybody listening. Until that time, we will talk to you.